I'm on. I believe I am online. Welcome. Thanks for joining me. This is Debs Cooper, Global Stressologist, talking today on why we follow and don't lead. I would love you to let me know if you're on this call live or if you're on this call. I think this is working. If you're on this call live or if you're on this call as a replay would be super exciting. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So why we follow and don't lead. Let me know if it's a replay. I keep forgetting all these things. A replay, live, where you're from, any questions, let me know. So why we follow and don't lead. This is look, I'm sure I actually say this every time. This is a great topic. So first, I'd like to say you actually do both. So I'm just going to break all illusion and think that you don't lead is actually, I'm just going to smash it out there right at the very start and say you do both. So you do follow and you do lead. So I'm going to break it into why this happens. It all just depends on the setting. And so when I say about the setting, your surroundings, it depends on where you are and who you're with of whether you follow or lead. And I'm sure you've heard people say they're an introvert or they're an extrovert on certain areas or anything that's going on in their life. So you will also be an introvert as you are an extrovert. And I'm going to break this down further today to talk about this because this is really important because people go, oh, I'm an introvert, I don't want to go out, or I'm an introvert, I don't want to speak up, or I'm introverted this. But I guarantee when you look at this stuff that I'm going to give you today, some tips, you're actually also an extrovert. So why we follow and don't lead is because of what I'm going to explain to you. And then I'm going to give you some tips on how to lead more if that's what you're looking for. So number one, there's a fear, and we come up with a fear of why we follow and don't lead. And I came up with some tips on this. So for me, it was about looking silly. And I've noticed this with other people as well. They don't want to do stuff because they're going to look silly. They're going to look and be judged on it. So that's one of the things around the fear. There's also another one that you perceive that someone knows more than you and they're going to call you on your knowledge. So this is where you can get caught out to be a fraud. Just a word. Everything's just a word. So someone's going to go, hey, you're wrong with that, or someone's going to call you out publicly or on the sly or anything. So this is one of the parts of fear. The other one is that you can hurt someone with what you say or do or have said or done, because we know that words have an impact. So if you're fearful on something, sometimes we feel we're going to hurt someone around us. The other fear that comes up is it can have a financial impact on your world or those around you. So when I was thinking about this fear, I was thinking in a business environment where you speak up at work and you could potentially lose your job, you could be demoted, or you could be targeted or bullied or whatever label you want to put on it. But that could also happen. So that's a fear that will come up because it can have a financial impact in your world. The other one I came up with was not a fear, but our past stories. So our past stories stop us in our tracks. And our past stories are a lopsided perception or an imbalanced perception or something that we think that this is going to happen again, so we have a fear of it. Or we also remember our past and we have guilt associated to it. So our past stories really lock us in our tracks and immobilize us. And a perfect example today was this morning in Christchurch, they had an earthquake. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware, Christchurch had an earthquake 2010 and 2009 that immobilized a lot of people. Also did some massive damage to people's emotion and physical structure around Christchurch and New Zealand and the rest of the world. So, so even just this earthquake this morning brought up past stories and past emotions. So this is another reason why we're holding on to things in our past that can immobilize us. The other one was there was fear, past stories, and subordination. And so when I talk about subordination or think about subordination, I'm thinking that we perceive that someone is greater than us or has more than us, so they're taking over what's going on. Go and check that. Oh, okay, that's still working. So that someone is greater than us. And so when I think about this, I call it the pedestal and the pit. So when someone's on a pedestal, we look up to them. And when someone's in the pit, when we feel we have more power, we look down on them. And so when we're looking up at someone, we're actually forgetting our genius. And so we subordinate, we use eggshells, we tiptoe, we pretty much follow everything they say or do. Or you can say it's like a puppy dog. Oh, throw me a bone, throw me any opportunity, throw me something that's going to make you look at me and acknowledge me. That's another one. Another reason why we follow over leading is it's how do I word this? It's not worth the argument. It's not worth the argument. So you just go ahead and you do stuff. It's not actually an argument, it's a discussion. It's just a word. But you know those times when somebody says something, they're like, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And you're just like, oh, for goodness sake, I might as well just do it. It's not worth the argument. I might as well do it their way and just get it done, and then it's off the list. So it's actually not an argument, it's a discussion, which is just a word, and we perceive that they again have something greater than us, because that's where it comes into. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. And you know it's emotionally draining, and when people poke, sometimes the lion comes out and roars the more you poke. So it's not worth the discussion. Another reason is the physical. And this means when I talk about the physical, I'm talking about you're just not physically up to it. So if someone goes, I want you to be the leader of the pack and take someone for a 20K run, and I want you to go this afternoon, and you're like, there is no way I can take someone or take a lot of people on a 20K run. There's no way. Physically for a start, I couldn't do it. My mind would go, yeah, bring it on, bring on that challenge. But my body would go, what the frick are you thinking? So you're not physically up to it. Maybe it's going to sleep deprive you. You're going to emotionally screw yourself over, any of those things. But just know there's a thing called desire. And the desire is, if you truly desire it, if you really, truly desire it, you'll find a way to get it done. And that's actually into my next one as well, because there's a thing called timing. And we don't have enough time in the day or the week or the year or anything to get it done, or how am I going to do that on top of what I'm doing? If you truly desire it, you would find the time. You know, they say if you've got a busy job, you give it to a busy person because it gets done. If you truly desire it, you find that time, you find that energy, you find a way around it. And with that timing, I'm just going to go back to our past stories, our BS stories. That's a BS story, because once again, if you truly desire it. So now I'm going to tell you, now I've told you why we follow and don't lead. Now I'm going to tell you how to lead more. So this is simple. Oh, well, I think it's simple. And if you don't think it's simple, then best you connect with me so we can make it simple for you. So step one is assess. Assess, is this important? Is this really important? Is this not important? Is this important to you? Or is it important to somebody else? So when you go to important, assess. Important, is it important? Is it important to you or someone else? Why is it important? Why is it important? And then there's another thing, another check-in that I'd love you to do is it ego-driven? Is it entitlement? Same thing as ego. Is it just because? Because I know I have a just because. When someone tells me you can't do this, I'm like, game on, game on. But that's ego, entitlement, and just cause all in one. But then there's that little thought of, okay, come on, get real. Is this actually what you want to do, if you truly desire it, or is it not? Hey, thanks for joining me, Ashley. Yay. Next week's all about you, just so you know. Or say it in there, next week's all about you. So what are you going to do about it? You're going to assess. The next thing is you're going to subordinate. And when I talk about the word subordinate, you're going to subordinate or you're not. And when I talk about that, it's wise to go, what do you have that they don't have? So if it's something you would like to lead on, what do you have that they don't have? And this is not about an upper hand. This is not about I do this more than them. They don't do this. I can do this. It's actually a humble way of going, wow, I've got something. And when I talk about that humble way, it's like, wow, I've got something in here. This is really important to me. Wow, I've got something in here. And so it's more a humble, not a yay, yay, pom pom, rah, rah, I've got something and they haven't. But what do they have and where do you do that? And what do you have that they don't have? Just to give you that notch up to go, wow, my shoulders are back. Thank you very much. There was a time there's a gentleman I mentor under Dr. John DeMartini, and he's a human behavioral specialist, incredibly intelligent, been doing his philosophy, the DeMartini method, and he's had it created for 48 years. And the reason I know 48 years because I'm 48 years young, old, whatever you want to label it. So he's been doing it for so long. But sometimes I get the honor to listen in on his consults. And by doing that, I'm definitely subordinating. But I'm respectful of the opportunity of listening to the way he weaves his magic and he talks to people and he can get stuff. Now, at that time, I'm following him, but I'm also leading because there's opportunities I can go, wow, this is something, or he'll throw me a bone, if you want to call it, or he'll throw me an idea or ask a question to keep me on track, and I'll listen to that. Now, there's definitely times that happens. If I was to go back and go, what do I have that he doesn't have? There's lots of things. I can definitely deliver differently to him. Some people like his presentation, some people like mine. It's also about subordinating or not subordinating. So for me, I can definitely follow then and I can also lead. But it's also the humble opportunity and privilege of listening to something that's inspiring for me that I can learn from. Because I'm always taking in and learning and knowledging. And when things hit me hard or soft, I'm looking at that to take in and learn from. So the other thing is what to do about this is, who are you going to peeve off? We talked about those past stories and fear and that earlier. Who are you going to peeve off and annoy and upset with you doing whatever it is you're going to lead? We talked about that, that fear of looking silly, the financial impact, those things that you're going to hurt. So what I'd love you to do is, when you look at being a leader, look at who you're going to peeve off in your mind, because it's all just a BS story, and look at what's the value to them of you leading at this time. What's the value to them of you leading at this time? If you can do 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 values to them or benefits to them of you leading, you will have no problem doing this. You'll be able to articulate to them. You'll be able to get them inspired on your train, and you'll be more inspired to do it instead of running away. The other way to deal with it is past stories. And when I talk about past stories, they are just BS stories that we've got in our mind. So go back to that time that something happened. Go back to that time that BS story happened, and what was the value to you, the benefit to you, what was the advantage to you of it happening to you back then and all the way through to now. Because if you can dissolve that fear, that past story, that block whatever it is, to not have it run you anymore. That is so inspiring. That's so sexy. You're going to be alive. You're going to be more of a leader, not only for others around you, but actually for yourself. And this will cause you less grief. Less grief if you can see the value in that. If you think you had a pee off person back then, what's the benefit to them? Just like what we did when we talked about who are you going to peeve off. So if you can dissolve that, you can definitely move forward. I have multiple past stories that I can that would make me sit in the corner and rock, make other people sit in the corner and rock. And that's how I get through it. And that's how I dissolve that. That's how I take that leadership on. So think about those. Pick and choose your battles. And when I say battles, they aren't battles at all. They're just stories that we've got. So pick and choose. Is this worth this? Is this not? Don't do it if it doesn't feel right. Don't do it. Don't do it if it doesn't feel right. Don't do it. Don't do it if it doesn't feel right. I don't know how many times I have to say this. If it doesn't feel right in your heart, don't do it. You know if it feels right, and you know if it feels not so great to do. So don't do it. Just know that you can also change your mind on anything. And when I say change your mind, you can say, yes, I'm going to do it, but now I'm not. That's okay. Yes, I'm going to do it, but now I'm not. But ensure that you have a strategy behind you that allows you to pass that on to somebody else. So going back to the very start of this, why we follow and don't lead, you actually do both. You do follow and you do lead. It just depends on the settings. So thank you for joining me here today. Why we follow and don't lead. Debs Cooper, Global Stressologist, signing off. I think that's me. And I want to thank you, and I'll see you next week for something more inspiring yet again. Thanks for joining me.